Anthroponis in a small town. I chose Mill Memorial in Milford, Connecticut. The tower was built in 1889 and it celebrates the founders of Milford. To honor the settlers in Milford, they decided to carve their names into the stone on the tower and the surrounding wall. The first sign that I noticed was mining in stone. The memorial is almost entirely made out of stone, which was mined. The article Environmental Impacts of Agate and Stone Mining states that mining has a huge impact on the Earth's systems. Mines are required to wash materials on site, and some mines use almost millions of gallons of water to complete this task. Mining is also very dangerous and can cause a runoff of toxic materials. Scientists can measure and observe the anthropogenic influence and consequences of mining by the amount of water used and how it impacts the surrounding area. Another sign I noticed was the physical weathering of the building. Weathering describes the breaking down or dissolving of rocks and materials on the surface of Earth. In the article Physical Weathering in Landscapes, it proposed that these cracks are caused by tensile stresses that arise in the interior due to strong radical gradients in the temperature that evolve and rotate in alignment with the sun's rays. There are cracks in the stones, and there are spaces in between the rocks that keep on getting bigger. The structure has been closed to the public because it was deemed too old and unstable. No one is allowed inside the mill. Scientists will be able to observe and influence the weathering of this mill because they would be able to see the damages done over time. The third sign that I noticed was erosion of the building. Both of these stones had clear writing on them, but due to erosion, the words are barely visible. You can't even see the writing on the first stone in the first picture. And in the second pictures, the words are fading fast. In the article, Physics of Wind Erosion and Its Control states wind can cause erosion. The force of the wind against the surface soil grains can overcome the force of gravity. Scientists will be able to measure and observe the influence of erosion of the mill by the damages done and how clearly the words can be depicted. The fourth sign was chemical weathering on man-made structure. The top of the mill and the iron on the doors and the sides are starting to rust. You can see the top of the roof and the doors starting to turn a reddish-brown color due to the rust. The chemical weathering is when water can change the composition of minerals. The type of changes on the mill memorial is due to oxidization. Oxidization is when rust happens on iron. Oxidization is more vulnerable to other forms of weathering because it accelerates the decaying of rock. In the article Chemical Weathering Examples and Types, it tells us that this process weakens the structure of the materials and often produces a reddish-brown color. Scientists will be able to measure and observe the influence of chemical weathering because they will be able to see a chemical reaction happening between the rock and the rainwater. Preventing drainage. And the final sign that I noticed was the preventage of drainage. The area around the mill doesn't have a lot of drainage, and because of this, it causes it to flood often. And sometimes the road even gets shut down due to the amount of water. In the article Environmental Best Practice Guidelines, it states that some environmentalists believe that drainage is harmful to the environment. They say it degrades waterways, increases sediment loss during construction, degrades water quality, and increases erosion due to increased water velocity. Scientists will be able to measure this by looking at places that have more drainage compared to places that have less drainage to see if there is a difference on whether it affects the environment. Mining and urbanizations were the main sources of anthropogenic change that I observed. Mining relates to the signs that I outlined because this mill was built out of rock and stone that had been mined. And because the mill was made out of rock and stone, it caused the physical and chemical weathering of the building. It also lended a hand on how the building was eroded. Also, urbanization related to the signs because prevented drainage was something else I highlighted because it can happen in urban cities and towns. I had never thought about these 5 signs and how they affected the environment, let alone notice them around me. It surprised me how many sources of anthropogenic change were around me in such a small town.